I live in a small, easily overlooked town characterized by a solitary stop sign and a gas station, which exists solely because of its proximity to the nearby highway. To experience any semblance of civilization, one must travel a good 25 minutes away. As a result, unsettling events in this desolate place take on an amplified sense of dread. Encounters with homeless individuals and drug addicts are commonplace, as they frequently pass through the area. They roam freely, engaging in theft and mischief without repercussions. Unfortunately, this has become the norm around here. However, a few years ago, something extraordinary happened that deviated from the ordinary. I vividly remember being sound asleep in my bed, oblivious to the impending terror awaiting me. Suddenly, I woke up, disturbed by the intense heat enveloping my room. It was the peak of summer, and finding respite from the sweltering temperature was challenging. But then, a disturbing sensation settled in the pit of my stomach, unsettling me to my core. I glanced at the slightly open bathroom door, where the light was still on. Everything seemed normal. I had left the light on, as a precaution for navigating in the dark during nocturnal visits. My attention then turned to the window directly across from my bed. It lacked curtains, but had shabby blinds that occasionally offered glimpses of the outside world. The yard light outside flickered, but it was the lurking shadows that caught my attention. A figure, pressed against my window, seemed to patiently await the blind's movement to catch a voyeuristic view of my room. As a child, I never had a vivid imagination, but this sight unleashed a torrent of horrors, reminiscent of those depicted in countless films. Overwhelmed by fear, I tightly shut my eyes and sought refuge beneath my blankets, inadvertently turning my sleeping quarters into a stifling oven. By morning, the figure had vanished. Tears welled up in my eyes as I rushed to my mother's room, desperately seeking solace. I recounted the night's events on the verge of hysteria. Instead of offering comfort, she dismissively laughed, treating my fears as foolishness. According to her, it was probably just a stray cat that had somehow found its way to the window ledge. Although her explanation seemed plausible, given the window's height, something felt off about it. Later that day, while doing yard work, I casually glanced at my window. To my astonishment, one of our metal patio chairs had been mysteriously pushed against it. I drew my mother's attention to this peculiar discovery, only to face her scolding. She attributed the chair's position to the antics of the hypothetical feline trespasser. Frustrated, I insisted on my innocence, as I hadn't been responsible for moving it. The chair was heavy and required significant effort to handle. Unbeknownst to us, this incident initiated a disturbing pattern. Night after night, I would witness the shadowy figure and inform my mother, only to find the patio chair pushed against the window every morning. This unsettling routine continued for several weeks, gradually causing my mother to grow apathetic toward my distress. However, one fateful morning, we stumbled upon a chilling revelation. The exterior screen of my window had been slashed open. My mother's face displayed unease as she shook her head, attributing it to the elusive stray cats we had yet to encounter. Her palpable disquietude left me unsettled. Unable to bear the torment any longer, I made the decision to sleep in the living room that night. It posed a challenge, due to the interconnectedness of the kitchen and living area, with multiple windows serving as potential points of entry. The first night on the couch passed without incident, albeit with the discomfort of an aching back. However, 4 days later, our ordeal took a distressing turn. I awoke from a deep slumber and glanced at the clock above the fireplace. It was a little past 3 a.m. My initial confusion quickly faded as a beam of light pierced through the kitchen window, resembling the piercing gaze of a flashlight. The luminous stream traced along the walls, before settling on the love seat opposite the couch where I lay. Fear gripped me as I shared this unsettling occurrence with my mother, seeking solace. However, she continued to belittle my anxieties. Reluctantly, I sought refuge in my father's room. Despite the large window, his presence in the recliner, accompanied by the blaring television, instilled a modicum of security. Moreover, the yard light stood just outside the window, reinforcing my feeble sense of safety. Time passed, and everything seemed normal, causing me to doubt my own sanity, just as my mother had suggested. That is until a solitary figure emerged from the woods, next to our backyard shed. Confidently, the intruder walked beneath the yard light, gravitating toward the patio furniture, as if intimately familiar with the layout. This imposing figure exuded self-assurance, resembling a homeowner rather than a trespasser lurking in the night. I lay there, fixated on the flickering television screen, desperate for another glimpse. The thought of waking my father, known for his volatile temperament on good days and outright terror on bad ones, deterred me. I felt that solid proof was necessary before risking his wrath. Eventually, sleep overcame me, accompanied by a faint hope of witnessing another occurrence. I knew my father would be furious if I disturbed his slumber, and I had no desire to face his anger. When morning came, my mother resumed her habitual reprimands regarding the patio furniture. However, a new development arose, demanding our attention. She insisted that I stop rummaging through the toolboxes in the garage. Several tools had been removed and carelessly left on our doorstep: screwdrivers, a large hammer, flashlights, and more. Desperate to clear my name and absolve myself of suspicion, I implored my mother to stay awake with me for a single night. Since the garage served as an open carport, it couldn't be locked. I refused to bear the blame for someone else's transgressions. The relentless torment had pushed me to the edge. That night, we sat vigilantly in the living room, determined to thwart any intruders. Exhaustion eventually took its toll, and I fell asleep before my mother. However, her panicked voice jolted me awake. She pointed toward the window, offering a view into the garage. There, we saw the top of an individual's head as they paced back and forth. The unmistakable sound of metal tools being gingerly placed on the brick steps resonated, their attempt at silence marred by muffled clatters. Urgently, my mother instructed me to wake my father. He grabbed his pistol and headed towards the front of the house, where the garage stood. Prompted by his frantic daughter in the dead of night, echoes of my father's enraged screams reverberated through the night, punctuated by the clattering of dropped tools. The disconcerting sound of gunfire followed, evidence of my father's unstable aim. Frantically, footsteps pounded their way out of the garage. Each reverberation felt in my chest. My mother peered through the window, hesitantly opening the door to admit my father. He had missed his target, but he recounted an unnerving sight. A man crouching by our front door, intently studying the handle. That night, none of us found solace in sleep. When morning arrived, authorities from the nearby town arrived, offering a semblance of reassurance. Their inquiry revolved around stolen items and a description of the intruder. With little else to provide, they advised us to install security cameras. After a brief interaction, they left, attributing the incident to a desperate thief seeking quick gains. But if that were the case, why were the tools left untouched? Why did the generator, the welder, and the unlocked vehicles in the garage remain undisturbed? In response to this lingering unease, we decided to set up hunting trail cameras around our property. Since that harrowing encounter, nothing further has transpired.